Hey everyone, this is Mitchell from New Dawn Aquaculture. We're a coral farm located in Edmonton, Alberta that focuses on sustainably and ethically producing coral for the Canadian market. Today, I want to talk to you about rock flower anemones. While we tend to focus on coral at New Dawn Aquaculture, there are a lot of other really interesting animals that go in our reef aquariums, and rock flower anemones are probably one of our favorites. Rock flower anemones are as popular as they are in the reef aquarium hobby, mostly due to how easy they are to keep, especially for an anemone, which tends to be a more challenging group of animals, and the insane colors they come in. Rock flower anemones can rival zoanthids in the vast array of color morphs you'll find. As far as desirable anemones go, so not counting things like Majano anemones or Aptasia, rock flowers are probably the easiest anemone to keep that we actually want in our aquariums. Maybe that title belongs to Maximini anemones, but they're pretty close. Both these anemones are the ones that I recommend to beginners, and they'll give you the least amount of issues when it comes to their care requirements. You have to be careful when it comes to buying rock flower anemones. I have seen multiple different species labeled as rock flowers and being sold for high price tags. One really bad one that you'll come across are Bornman anemones, which I see labeled as rock flowers all the time. These are actually a pest anemone that will take over your system. They're not quite as bad as Aptasia or Majano anemones, but I definitely wouldn't want them in my tank, and I definitely would not want to spend any money on them. So just be careful, make sure you're getting them from a trusted source that knows that they're actually sending you the right type of anemone. One thing that's important to mention with rock flower anemones is that they are not a natural host of clownfish. I've definitely seen people online saying that their clownfish did end up hosting a rock flower anemone, and I believe that's quite rare and is a little akin to your clownfish being hosted by a powerhead. It definitely can happen. Clownfish can be hosted by all sorts of things in the aquarium, but I definitely wouldn't buy a rock flower expecting my clownfish to be living in it. And in the same vein, let's talk about rock flower anemones with your other fish. I've definitely seen online and have heard from customers that they have a bad reputation for eating people's fish. And this has actually happened to me. I remember when I was brand new in the hobby, I had a rock flower anemone eat a tailspot blenny that I had recently introduced to the tank. The day before, the tailspot blenny was very lethargic, he hadn't been eating much, and I came home one day to find him sticking out of a rock flower. So it definitely can happen. But despite this happening to me, I still strongly feel that they don't deserve this bad reputation. In our coral farm, I see our fish bumping into rock flowers all the time, and they are not fazed by it. A rock flower anemone will pick off a dead or dying fish, a fish that is really struggling and is probably not going to survive the night anyways, but they're not actively hunting your perfectly healthy fish. Now let's talk about breeding rock flower anemones. I've done quite a bit of research online trying to figure out what exactly is happening here, and it is difficult to get to the bottom of it. There doesn't seem to be any solid consensus. I've seen people say that they breed asexually, so one larger rock flower will eventually grow to a size and start spitting out babies that can live around its base. I've seen people say that they breed sexually, so you'll have some male rock flowers and some female rock flowers, and at certain points during the year, all the males will release sperm into the water, the females will release eggs into the water, and the fertilized eggs will become new baby rock flowers. And finally, I've seen people say that the male rock flowers at certain times of the year will shoot sperm into the water, which will then fertilize the eggs that are inside of the female rock flower, and eventually she will shoot babies out which will live around her base, which kind of explains the asexual breeding theory that some people have. But unfortunately, without seeing some sort of study that actually breaks down exactly what's happening here, and I would love to see that study, it's really hard for us to know what is exactly going on. Most of what we have are just the anecdotal opinions of some hobbyists that have seen them breed in their aquariums. But what I can say for sure is they definitely do breed in aquariums. We get a lot of babies growing around our rock flowers, and we've grown some of them into adult rock flowers, although it's a slow process and it requires a lot of feeding. Speaking of feeding, do you need to feed rock flower anemones? Well, the babies I definitely feel you do. We've noticed if we don't feed them, they tend to disappear. But for the adults, the rock flowers that we're selling, you definitely don't need to feed them. They grow to a maximum of about 5 inches across, maybe a little more, a little less. And we've noticed that they get to that size a lot faster with regular feedings. And they're a ton of fun to feed, but if you don't feed them regularly, they just grow a lot slower. They might even stagnate a bit in size, but they'll keep their color and they'll remain perfectly healthy. So if you can keep the tank clean, feed them. They're a lot of fun to feed, but otherwise don't feel the need to do it. Another really nice thing about rock flower anemones is they tend not to move nearly as much as other types of anemones. Typically what we've noticed is that first night after being introduced into an aquarium, they will move around a little bit to find a spot they like, but they'll typically settle near the bottom of your rockwork, or even sometimes in the sand itself where they can attach their foot right to your bottom glass. In terms of lighting and flow, rock flowers aren't really that picky. Now, the nice thing about them being able to move themselves is they'll find a spot they like, but with them usually being in the lower part of the aquarium, they tend to be in slightly lower light and slightly lower flow. Now, I've definitely seen them in higher light and higher flow, and if anything, they're a little bit shriveled up, but I've not noticed any difference in coloration or the health of these animals based on their lighting and flow condition. So my recommendation, put it somewhere in your tank where you think it's going to look nice, and it'll hopefully stay near that area when it finds a spot it likes. When adding a rock flower to an aquarium, make sure that you turn off any wave makers in the tank. Give it 30 minutes to an hour to attach its foot to the rock before turning the flow back on. You don't want it getting sucked up into the wave maker before it's attached its foot. But once it has attached its foot, you can turn them back on. I wouldn't worry too much about them. They tend to remain pretty firmly planted in place. Hopefully this video has helped you learn more about rock flower anemones and how to care for them in your aquarium. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing more videos on the anemones we sell, all of the coral strains we farm, the dry goods we use to farm those corals, and the captive redfish we sell. So thanks for watching and stay tuned.